A modern tractor uses a diesel engine to pull heavy plows, but a team of draft horses relies entirely on the geometry of leather straps. If you get the draft angle off by even a fraction of an inch, the horse struggles to pull efficiently. Experienced teamsters obsess over 3/8 of an inch adjustments. This is the forgotten physics of traditional harnessing, and it explains how a pair of Belgian horses can pull over 30,000 pounds without a single drop of diesel fuel. Most folks today assume that horsepower is just a quaint unit of measurement, something from the old days. But right now, over 25,000 farmers in the United States do their daily farm work with horses, not as a hobby, not as a novelty, but as their primary source of power. The reason they can do it, the reason a 1,600-pound animal can move 10,000 pounds of earth and steel, comes down to one thing that most people have never heard of. It's called draft geometry, and once you understand it, you'll never look at a horse and harness the same way again. For most of human civilization, if you wanted to use a horse to pull a heavy load, you were out of luck. The harness systems available in ancient Europe, what's called the throat and girth arrangement, ran straps directly across the horse's windpipe. Think about that for a moment. The harder the horse pulled, the more it choked itself. These straps pressed against the horse's sternocephalicus muscle and trachea, restricting its breathing and reducing its pulling power with every step. The strongest animal in your field was being throttled by its own equipment. This is why oxen dominated farming for centuries, not because they were stronger than horses, but because an ox yoke sits against the shoulders, not the throat. Oxen could breathe while they worked. Then, sometime around the 5th century, in China during the northern and southern dynasties, someone invented the horse collar, a padded, rigid frame that wrapped around the horse's neck and sat firmly against the shoulders, completely bypassing the windpipe. It took 400 years for that invention to reach Europe. By the 9th century, it had arrived. By the 12th century, it was universal across European agriculture. Historians call it one of the most important inventions of the Middle Ages because overnight it transformed the horse from a riding animal into the most powerful farm engine on earth. Around 1000 CE, the introduction of the horse collar in Europe triggered a fundamental shift away from oxen as the primary draft animal. Horses were faster, they had more endurance over a working day, and now, finally, they could pull without choking. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. The collar alone isn't enough. You can strap the finest collar in the world onto a Belgian draft horse, and if the geometry of the harness is wrong, that horse is going to struggle, develop sore shoulders, and eventually go lame. The collar is the single most important piece of equipment for the horse's comfort and safety, but it's only one piece of a 3-part system that has to work in perfect harmony. Let me walk you through those 3 parts, because this is where the real knowledge lives. First comes the point of draft. This is the exact spot on the hame where the trace attaches. The hames are those rigid, curved bars, usually metal, that fit snug against the collar. They're the structural backbone of the whole system, taking the full force of the pull. Now, the point of draft on the harness needs to match the ideal point of draft on the horse's shoulder, not approximately exactly. There was an old teamster, known to the people who learned from him simply as Addy, who would insist on a 3/8 inch adjustment in the point of draft. One of his students couldn't believe he could even see that fine a detail, much less think it made that much difference. But Addy was adamant about getting it just right. He not only knew it, he lived it every minute he was with horses and mules. That kind of precision might sound extreme, but consider this. Good horsemen know from long experience that sore necks or sore shoulders on work stock are due to ignorance or carelessness of men in charge and are inexcusable. A collar that's off by less than half an inch can create a pressure point that, over a 10-hour working day, will damage the suprascapular nerve in the shoulder. That damage has a name. It's called Sweeney shoulder. a condition where the muscles atrophy, the horse goes lame, and its working career can end permanently. All because someone didn't take the time to get the point of draft right. Second comes the angle of draft. This is the one that really gets into physics. When the horse is hitched and ready to work, you want nearly a 90-degree angle where the collar and traces come together. 90 degrees, that's the magic number. At 90 degrees, you get optimal conversion of the horse's push into the collar into forward movement of the load. If the angle is off, if the trace line is too high, the weight of the load ends up too low on the collar, and it inhibits the free movement of the shoulder. The horse has to fight its own equipment just to take a step. If the angle drifts from 90 degrees in the other direction, you get upward pressure that lifts against the collar and wastes energy. Either way, the horse suffers and the work suffers. Third is the line of draft. This is simply the path the trace follows from the hame to the load, and the rule is absolute. The line of the trace should be straight and unbroken. No curves, no angles, no detours. A straight line from the point of attachment on the hame to the point of attachment on the implement. Any deviation means wasted force, uneven loading, and eventually an injured horse. Now, when all three of these elements are correct, when the point of draft sits in exactly the right spot, the angle is at 90 degrees, and the line runs straight and true, something remarkable happens. A single draft horse weighing 1,600 pounds can pull 8,000 pounds. A larger draft horse, a Shire or a big Belgian, can pull up to 12,000 pounds. Over short distances, these animals can move 10 to 15 times their own body weight. But here's where it gets truly extraordinary, and this is the part that makes engineers scratch their heads. One Belgian horse can pull 8,000 pounds. You'd think two Belgians could pull 16,000, but that's not what happens. If you put two Belgian horses in the harness who are strangers to each other, together they can pull 20 to 24,000 pounds. Not twice as much as one horse, 3 times as much. Now, take those same two horses, raise them together, train them together, let them learn to pull and think as one unified team, and that pair will pull 30 to 32,000 pounds. 4 times what a single horse can do. This is called the synergy effect, and it's real, it's measurable, and it defies simple arithmetic. In 1924, a pair of Shire draft horses pulled 100,000 pounds, 50 tons. A single Shire from Liverpool pulled 58,000 pounds, and historians note he was shod in that city's preferred horseshoe style at the time, which basically meant he was wearing cleats. In 1981, a Belgian pair at the Deerfield Fair set a world record by pulling 22,000 pounds over 66 inches. These aren't myths. These are documented, measured, verified events. And all of it, every pound, depends on the geometry of the harness. Now, let's talk about something most people have never seen, the evener. If you're running more than one horse, you need a way to equalize the pull between animals. This is where evener geometry comes in, and it's beautiful in its precision. A 3-horse whiffletree is a compound lever hitch that splits the pull of 3 horses harnessed abreast into one balanced draft point on a plow or wagon. The main bar, the evener, pivots off center so 2 horses on a double tree pull one end and a single horse pulls the other, with the pivot placed at a 2-to-1 ratio. This equalizes the load so each horse carries 1/3 of the draft. The lever ratio has to be exact. If your evener is 60 inches long, the clevis pin for the implement must sit 40 inches from the single horse end and 20 inches from the double tree end. Get that wrong by even an inch and the load redistribution drifts. A 2-inch error on a 60-inch evener shifts roughly 7% of the load onto whichever side got shorter. You will see it in the horses within a day. One animal will be working harder, sweating more, tiring faster. And if you don't catch it, within a week you'll have a sore shoulder or a lame horse. This is why the best eveners in this country come from Amish craftsmen in Ohio, who make them from ash and hickory wood with tolerances that would impress a machinist. It's why companies like Pioneer Equipment in Ohio and I&J Manufacturing in Gap, Pennsylvania, are still building new horse-drawn implements in the year 2025. I&J Manufacturing offers a ground drive sickle bar mower with a scissors-type blade bar imported from Germany that significantly reduces the power needed to cut hay. Modern adjustable plows designed for horse-drawn farming have been tested to reduce draft by up to 15% compared to fixed plows. This isn't nostalgia, this is active engineering. Many farmers who've been especially successful in avoiding sore necks on their horses do the collar fitting themselves very carefully and do not allow collars to be unbuckled again afterward. Their hired help takes collars off and puts them on over the horse's head. Horses become used to it very quickly. Though it's worth noting, this plan works well with horses, but not with mules. Their long, sensitive ears make them object strongly to having anything pulled over their heads. Anyone who's worked mules is smiling right now. So where does this all stand today? In Mennonite farming and homesteading communities and across Amish settlements throughout the country, draft horsepower isn't declining, it's growing. The Amish population has risen from about 5,000 in 1920 to roughly 300,000 today. Some 85% of Amish youth stay in the faith. Old Order Mennonite populations are doubling about every 15 years. In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania alone, over 20,000 horses are at work right now. Horse Progress Days, founded back in 1974 by Belgian breeder Elmer Lapp and Maurice Celine, the founder of Draft Horse Journal magazine, has grown into an annual gathering that attracts crowds of 30,000 people. Its 30th anniversary was in 2024. Some 60 to 70% of attendees are Amish or Mennonite. And the purpose of Horse Progress Days isn't to look backward. It's to demonstrate newly manufactured horse-drawn farming equipment behind real horses in real field conditions. In 2024, the Amish community produced the first new horse-drawn combine in nearly 70 years. Wendell Berry, the Kentucky author, essayist, and draft horse farmer, once heard a Mennonite farmer say to an Amish one, "I wish I could persuade you people to use pneumatic tires on your equipment." The Amish farmer replied, "If we do that, we'll make our machinery able to be pulled by a tractor. The first thing you know, we'll be using tractors, and I want my children to farm." There's a deep wisdom in that. One machine requires a computer technician and a global supply chain to fix. The other just needs a fresh patch of clover and a calm voice. You can breed and train more horses, increasing or replacing your working animals. You can't breed a tractor. The horses fuel themselves from the ground they walk on and produce their own replacements. Some agriculture experts have predicted that the increased population of Amish and Mennonite farmers, combined with an aging population of conventional farmers, could result in a majority of farmers using horses within 40 years. Whether or not that prediction holds, the trend line is real. These communities are growing, their young people are staying on the land, and their equipment is getting better every year. But none of it works, not a single row gets plowed, not a single ton of hay gets cut, unless the harness geometry is right, unless somebody takes the time to check that 90-degree angle, unless somebody measures the evener to the inch, unless somebody cares enough about a 3/8 of an inch adjustment to get down on their knees in the dirt and get it exactly right. Professor E.V. Collins at Iowa State College understood this back in the 1920s when he developed the dynamometer to scientifically test the pulling power of horses. He proved what teamsters already knew, that the connection between horse and load isn't just leather and metal. It's mathematics, it's physics, it's geometry that turns muscle into motion. 1,200 years ago, a padded collar freed the horse from choking on its own harness. Today, the descendants of that invention, refined to tolerances